the sea peoples, time travelers. Who are the sea people? Nobody has any idea. An entire civilization was wiped out in a generation by the sea people. The civilization that was wiped out was a trading nation. A capitalist nation had been established between various nations, and an entity had been constructed of capitalism, of trading nations. And it's destroyed within a generation by the sea people. Who are the sea people? You are. It's an amazing fantasy that's come to my mind. The organism inside which we live, the entity, our God, is coated with blood vessels on its surface at the helioports, at the heliosphere. The outside of the heliosphere is covered in blood vessels. At the moment, the blood vessels are covered in algae. They've become green, and they should be red. It's simple as that. The surface of the entity inside which we live, the eyeball, should be red from blood vessels. What happens is the energy down here doesn't all get used, and so the surface becomes stagnant, and algae builds up. And this algae exists there where consciousness lives. So of course it's corrupting consciousness itself, hence the behavior. So a cycle builds up where the algae wins. The cycles of civilization are that the algae is winning right now. The algae is super powerful right now because we are so corrupted. But there's a moment coming when we'll spring forward. We will live positively. Our hearts will beat correctly with the universe, aligned with it. Our blood will become more red. We will defeat the green, and we will break through and cure our cancer. Cancer of our consciousness and cancer itself. But what needs to happen when we do this motion is that the eye will blink. Apologise. There'll be a wiping action on the surface. The surface will turn inside out, and there'll be a wiping motion. And I want you to imagine the eye blinking. And in that blink of an eye, there'll be lights down here will be turned off. It'll only be for the tiniest, briefest of moments, but the effects, there'll be a momentum to that, and that's what we're going to experience. And the earth will be destroyed, completely destroyed. Not one stone will be left upon another when the eye blinks. We will go in one. Our consciousness will move across entirely from a meter squared to second squared. We'll exist on the second squared. If it's fast, there won't even be any pain. We'll suddenly find ourselves existing on the second squared side. And we'll then be returned to Earth. How long we stay there for, no idea. I think it'll be immediate. We'll just come straight back again. When we come back, we're going to end up in the Bronze Age. Because we've learned about C, you see. The speed of light, meters per second, is wrong. It's meters squared per second squared. It's a relationship between two areas, not between two velocities. It's simple. Engineering model can be constructed from there. So that learning about C means that we are the people who can see peoples. So if we go back to a society and we find they're building capitalism, there is slavery, there is ownership, we say, no, stop, rebuild. Now, Göbekli Tepe was arrived in this way. It marks a high point for us. At some point in our redelivery system, back in Göbekli Tepe, we are flying. Gravity is so sweet for us, we can swim in the atmosphere because that's our natural atmosphere, my friends. We're currently living on the bottom of the pond, scum, in the mud. We're about to evolve and start swimming in our natural environment, our atmosphere. And to do that, we have to create the atmosphere. So, remember this piece of information: love and kindness. If this crazy fantasy story should come true, and you find yourself in a really weirdest of situations, in a body you don't recognize, in a land where you don't know where you are, remember who you are. You are an immortal soul who is just going through a birth cycle. The trick to evolving consciousness is to remember this. Human beings uniquely have no training when we're born. We have to be trained when we get here. There's nothing innate in our behavior as far as we can see. The innate behavior that we have, the basic base stuff that we all do, human beings do, eat, sleep, breathe, heart beating, sex, birth, death, those things, our innate behavior, can contain the intelligence through a trick of hypnotizing yourself. You force this information to be true and you go, I believe this information. I believe Reynolds BN's 220. He's telling me that God does exist. He can prove it. He's got an engineering model based on Euler with no physics at all that explains that we live inside an organism which is an eyeball. And the eyeball watches us. If any of that is likely to be true, I'm going to choose to believe it and I'm going to behave myself from now on. Really, really, really behave myself. So when the moment of the blink comes, you are found behaving yourself, living righteously, living with love in your heart in every deed that you have done, and you've looked back at your life and you've forgiven yourself for every deed that you have done and understanding where it places it. You've learned the lessons. You're now living positively as love. You will carry this information into the future and you will be a king. If we can all carry this piece of information, all of us, we will be the king. We will. One entity, the human being, and infinite manifestations of. So we worship the human being, our oneness. It's who we are. We know that. Anchor that really firmly. And you're back in the room, remember. Could this be true? Really, could this be true? I'm just waiting for you to say, yes, it is true. Follow the Rebel King.